Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. Welcome to Shaq's house.
Hey, what's up, Shaq Houses? How you doing? It's the one and only Shaq House here. Been away for a minute, but guess what? I'm back. That's right. I hope you've all been doing well. Today, we're going to be talking about, and happy Saturday, by the way. Happy Saturday, folks. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most powerful mutants ever, and one of the first X-Men ever. That's right. We're going to be talking about Bobby Drake, a.k.a. the indomitable Iceman. Yeah, he's grown a lot over the years, from being a 16-year-old Joker in the original X-Men who could cover himself like a snowman, to being able to manipulate his icy body down to a molecular level. We're going to be talking about his powers, how they work, and some brief history and fun facts about this man. So check it out, Bobby Drake, Iceman.
Iceman. Iceman is an Omega-Level Mutant born with the ability to lower his internal and external body temperature to a minimum of 105.7 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. In such a state of drastically lowered body temperature, he can project a form of energy that retards molecular activity, causing temperatures to decrease. You see, the thermokinetic energy present in molecular activity is being efficiently displaced through extra-dimensional means by his power, as it doesn't appear to travel to any other location. He can reduce temperatures to as low as absolute zero, that's 459.67 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, and like any normal human beings, the nerve centers for regulating Iceman's body temperature are found in the part of the brain called the hypothalamus. However, he can mentally override his hypothalamus to allow his body temperature to be lowered by his power. A related mutation has rendered his body tissues unaffected by sub-zero temperatures. Iceman can consciously and immediately lower his body temperature from its normal 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit to that of 105.7 degrees Fahrenheit below zero within the span of a few tenths of a second. Applying his power to liquids causes them to freeze instantly, and freezing solids often causes them to become brittle and crack under the sudden temperature shift. But the primary use of his power is to create ice. He does so by cooling and condensing water vapor and moisture in the atmosphere. When attacking solid objects, he tends to direct his freezing beams at the atmosphere around them instead of the object itself, covering it in layers of ice instead of disrupting its molecular integrity with a quick freeze. By focusing, he can shape the ice he makes into various and delicate forms and sculptures, such as a spray of ice daggers, walls or domes of ice for protection, ladders, columns, boomerangs, lassos, etc. Iceman's usual mode of transportation was his ice slides, ramps of ice supported by a series of columns which he could slide along. Iceman can also affect his own body with his powers. Already possessing a natural resistance to intense cold and its side effects, he originally produced a thin layer of snow over his body to disguise his features. But shortly after gaining more experience, he hardened this layer into a layer of ice, which constantly cracks and refreezes as he moves due to the sub-zero temperatures that his body is radiating. This ice sheath mildly shielded him from physical impact and injury, and obscured his features during the period of time where he still maintained a secret identity. Experiences with both Mikhail, Rasputin, and Emma Frost convinced Bobby to further experiment with his powers. First, he started with adding additional layers of ice onto his body, artificially bulking up his body with an exo armor of ice that increased his strength and durability. But not that much longer after that, Iceman learned how to physically transform his carbon-based body into organic ice, morphing himself into a sentient and animated ice statue. This granted him a number of new abilities. As organic ice, Iceman could now manipulate his icy body down to a molecular level. He can suffer all kinds of physical damage without sustaining injury. For example, he can lose an arm or have a hole the size of a soccer ball blown into his chest, and his powers can simply freeze new ice to replace the missing substance, leaving him no worse off providing that he does this before he attempts to transform back into his human form. Iceman can also morph his organic ice body into different ways, adding additional amounts of ice to grow to giant size at will, extending his arms to different lengths, transform his hands into blades or hammers, etc. Iceman later learned that he could mentally alter his body state of matter, transforming himself into ice, or water vapor, or just flat out water. He can project his mind through a uniform, unbroken medium in these states, allowing him to relocate himself at the speed of thought. For example, if Iceman was in a lake and transformed into water, his mind could transfer itself instantly into any other water molecules around him, allowing him to immediately reform himself anywhere along the shore of the lake, since all the water there is connected. By becoming water vapor, he could move instantaneously around a moisture-rich atmosphere in the same manner. Years later, a secondary mutation in him activated, forcing him to remain in his ice form at all times and not allowing him to revert back to flesh and blood at all. Therefore, it seemed likely that he no longer required sustenance such as food, drink, or oxygen to survive. When M-Day occurred, this secondary mutation vanished and he could once again revert back and forth between his human and ice forms. Iceman has demonstrated new applications of his abilities over time. He's experimented in creating animated ice sculptures, constructs he can move like stop-motion cinematography by cracking and refreezing them thousands of times per minute. Eventually, he learned how to split his mind between multiple ice bodies like this, creating a series of organic ice forms and animating all of them simultaneously. Although this allows him to be in many places at once, a side effect is that different aspects of his personality often assume control over the different split forms, similar to Jamie Madrox's duplicates. Iceman is also capable of controlled size changing, growing to enormous proportions by accumulating moisture from the air and then dispelling it to revert back to human size. His transmutation powers can protect him from injuries to his human form now as well. When his human form was vaporized, his mind and powers remained active long enough to freeze his stray molecules back into ice, then revert to human. One incident, when Mystique poisoned him, Iceman changed to organic ice and then filtered his body by exchanging every molecule of his body with new moisture pulled from the atmosphere, cleansing his human state of the poisons. Some fun facts. Bobby Drake holds a college degree in accounting and is a certified public accountant. With his skills, he probably helps some of the X-Men who have considerable net worth, like Professor Xavier, Archangel, Emma Frost, or Banshee, either invest or even launder some of their money. He was one of the original X-Men, the second member to join in fact, and he was the youngest member of the team, and his potential for Omega-level powers was apparent even back then. He's a kid from working-class Long Island, raised as the only child of a Jewish mother and an Irish father. His father, William, was portrayed as very bigoted at first, openly insulting Bobby and any woman he brought home. But that seemed to change when he stood up for mutant rights on national television and got hospitalized by the mutant-hating Friends of Humanity for his troubles. After a string of failed relationships over the years, with Polaris, Opal Tanaka, and even Kitty Pryde to name a few, Bobby came out as gay and revealed it to his teammates and parents. Though some homosexuals do come out of the closet late in life, Bobby having the younger Jean Grey telepathically coaxing it out of him doesn't qualify as that. But that aside, he's also been a member of the Champions of Los Angeles, the Defenders, and the original X Factor. How does Bobby's ice form work? Well, Iceman constantly freezes and refreezes his ice sheet form moment to moment. After all, the skin-tight ice would crack and splinter off every time he moved or even breathed otherwise. When Mikhail Rasputin used his energy manipulation powers on Bobby, he transformed him into water, reformed him as solid ice, shattered him to pieces, and then transformed him back into his human form. While that experience taught him that there was much more to his powers than he realized, it was his experience with Emma Frost that convinced him to take it further. You see, when her mind was temporarily trapped in Bobby's body at one point, she used his powers in ways that even he never thought of. For example, she jumped into a river and prevented the X-Men from following by freezing the entire surface, emerging only 5 seconds later a few miles down the river. By mingling Bobby's molecules with the moisture of the water, Emma was able to transfer her consciousness through the water at the speed of thought, forming a new ice body miles away. Now, Bobby himself, He learned to do something similar in the X-Men Forever series as both water and water vapor. Bobby could presumably transport himself anywhere on the planet as long as there's a continuous expanse of moisture for his mind to move through from one location to another. This motion occurs at the speed of thought and so is virtually instantaneous. To transport other people and objects, he would have to transform them into water vapor or moisture as well. His variant from the Age of Apocalypse was even more powerful. He was a member of Magneto's X-Men, and Magneto's training for his X-Men involved pushing their powers to their limits. This version of Iceman could alter his shape while in his frozen form and merge with any body of water, moisture, or ice, and re-emerge from it at some other point even miles away, within a matter of seconds. When Bobby's ice form was damaged or shattered, he could easily pull himself back together. On top of that, he was able to take people along by a process referred to as moisture molecular inversion, but it was rather unpleasant for the passenger. During the Inferno crossover, Jean Grey wondered if Bobby could freeze the entire world when she watched him use his powers. And in a sense, yes he can. You see, in Planet-Sized X-Men, he and several other fellow Omega-Level mutants, they terraformed Mars, colonizing it and making it into a habitable atmosphere. Now Bobby's function, his role, he created the planet's polar ice caps. That's powerful. Alright, Shackhousers, that's what I got for you this week. Sorry I took so long, but tune in next week. I promise you I will have something for you then. You have a good weekend, folks. Later!
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!